Dear fellow Americans and citizens of the world, greetings. It's always difficult. I've never really wanted to use Instagram as a political platform. But recently some of my friends have come forward with statements, and I'll do little things now and then. But I wanted to make a response to my Goonie brother, Josh Brolin, who I love and respect. Known him since, Goonies, actually, over the years. We haven't hung out much, but we I think, respect each other. I like Josh when I've seen him. And he gave a response to the criticisms that The Rock had received when he came out for Joe Biden. And I feel compelled to want to just, it's so difficult because it's like, what do you say? The emperor has no clothes, or whatever that saying is, that we see each other but we don't express our political opinions because we know if they're diverse, it may cause something. And I just want to respond first to The Rock coming out for Biden. Now, everyone should vote who they want for without any kind of pushback from anyone else, fans even. And a lot of people have pushback, I guess, against The Rock, and they say not so nice things, and I understand the passions, but a guy should be able to vote and speak about who he wants for. My issue with what The Rock did was that he came out and gave a political, really it's almost like a paid political commercial for Biden and Kamala Harris. Because in that thing of his meeting with them, he talks about truth, and and it's all very wrapped in a very lovely whipped cream. But underneath it all, there's no substance. Because there was no question, there was no probing questions. I mean, if you're going to meet with somebody and get their endorsement or want to endorse them, at least probe. There was no probing at all. There was just a concurring agreement and mutual affection for each other, which is fine. But probe. When you have a platform, I'm like a flea on an elephant's ass. I have a little platform compared to Josh and compared to The Rock, and my standing in Hollywood has been up and down over the years, over the 45 years I've been doing it. And I'm still, swimming upstream. I'm just a regular Joe, man. I'm a soldier of cinema and music, and I'm just a guy, came from a working class background. My parents were not in the WE and, had no fame at all. My dad worked 3 jobs. He was a laborer, General Bronze. My mom was a housewife. So I just struggled up the wall. It's not easy, and I understand that for people. And so it's from that perspective of which I speak. And the Rock endorsement of Biden and Kamala Harris and talking about truth. Well, there's plenty of untruths that they both told, but we didn't go into that. There was no probing about the Hunter Biden, 3.5 million from a Russian mafia guy, or the billions from China or the Ukraine. There was nothing about that. And that, to me, that bothers me, okay? Because what you're presenting to the people and to a public that has been dumbed down with education, I have to say, you're presenting to them with your ideology, and it's almost like, how can you pander? Then the other thing that bothered me was that at least meet with Trump. Meet with Trump, too. Then you can come back and say, I met with Trump, he's a jerk, he's an idiot, he's done nothing that he said he was going to do, which is not true. From what I understand, Trump has done tremendous things, from Pastor Darrell Scott and Bruce Lavelle and friends of mine and David Harris Jr., all black men, and Ben Carson, tremendous things for the black community. Alveda King, tremendous things. Now people are ignoring that. How about Israel? How about the truth? Every president has said the embassy should be in Jerusalem, and then they never do anything about it for years. How many times can I show you with Biden and Clinton and Pelosi and Schumer, they all said, let's have a border. We need a wall. We need this. Then for some reason, they changed their minds. Trump said, we're going to do this, and everybody went the other way. Why is that? What was it? Who was playing lip service? Who was playing the truth or not? And there are tapes of them saying this, so you can look at it. And I don't understand how my Hollywood friends can ignore that. You can't ignore that, Josh, or Dwayne. You can't ignore that hypocrisy. Nor can you ignore things about Trump that you may not like. But so far, in terms of what the message he delivered, in terms of what he want to do for the country, there's not been any hypocrisy. Then I have to talk to you about the COVID-19. Where's that hypocrisy? I ask both of you, Dwayne and Josh, look up General Chi Haotian, Haotian. He was the former defense secretary of China. Please, look him up. Read about his secret speech to the Communist Chinese Party in 2005, when he said, and I am paraphrasing and also it was a long speech, but basically what concerns us, among other things, is that he said China is overpopulated and we need to do something about it. Then he said, we need to teach our people to go out. Then he said, we need to colonize. Then he said, America has a landmass that we could use. And the West. So there is a strategy there. Do you understand? Going out, colonizing, landmassing. Then he said, we have to increase our biological weapon program. This is in 2005. We already have it, he said, but we have to increase it because we cannot have a nuclear experience because then the lands are not populated. You cannot populate those lands, but with a biological weapon, you can do this because you can go in and clean it out and it's habitable. Then, in that year, they built the Wuhan lab. Now think about that. That's the year they built the Wuhan lab, 2005. General Chi Haotian. Google him. Don't take my word for it. Secondly, the virus is 70% naturally occurring and 30% what the fuck. Excuse my French. It was manipulated. It was taken. There's a whole trail of this. I know it all. I've been on Homeland Security since 2001 till about 2014 at George Washington University. I get a lot of intel and I travel the world. I got FBI Men of the Year. There's a lot of things I could talk about. It went from a lab from the Netherlands. It got there, the DNA of this virus, in 2012, and then it was taken to Canada, the DNA of this virus. And that's when things were between there, and then taken from there, smuggled into Wuhan, the Wuhan lab. We know this. We know the person who took it. They know the flight it went on. We're not talking about that. But there's a lot of things that you're not understanding about this, but you just want to be able to get wrapped up in this thing about Joe Biden. And then Josh talked about not talking about Joe Biden's facility or faculties, which is fine. I understand that. I have compassion for that too. The guy is struggling. But he's not the most honest person, Josh. You talk about the truth and honest and fake news. This guy has lied too. All politicians do, both the left and the right. They're all in the same boat. But the difference is, Trump gave two speeches, one at Davos and one at the United Nations. Look up those speeches and you'll see why the attacks on Trump. And after the one at Davos, shortly after is when the COVID thing hit. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but things are looking strange to me. I mean, when you think about the speech he gave at Davos, saying that he wanted what's best for America and that not for the globalists. There you go, babe. That's what this is about. It's purely about globalist versus nationalist. Now, I'm not saying there's not part of, in a capitalist society, you have to have globalism. You know what I'm saying? You have to have. But the deals that were made, and Trump never changed his tune since his interview with Oprah and prior to that. He's talked about this global thing and bad deals for America. Now, that hurt the American worker. How can you deny that? Now, we're performers, and I agree with Josh in terms of the arts and sciences, how important they are. I got the STEP Award. the science, technology, education. Let me finish off with agitation propaganda and Erwin Piscator. So Erwin Piscator came out of Germany in the 1800s, worked with the Soviet Union and the communists, was with Bertolt Brecht in Germany, where he developed the art of the political theater, and then came to America in the 1930s and 40s and taught at the New School of Social Research in New York. Now, as I said, my mentor, Stella Adler, worked directly with Erwin Piscator, so I know a lot about the political theater. And what was that? That was taking Marxist principles and infusing them in arts, culture, the media, the newspapers, film, and the whatnot to push a social agenda. And that's what's happening in America today. The communists have done this throughout their history. Marxists have done it throughout their history. And they're doing it again now in our country. Now, in the 1940s, when Piscator was teaching this in America at the New School of Social Research, which a lot of influential actors and actresses and writers and directors studied under him, there was an influx of communist operatives in America at that time, a huge influence now. And you have to remember something, that in 1945, I think, at Ida Lupino's house, 46, there was a meeting of the Communist Party dealing with the unions. Ida Lupino was, let's say, the Jennifer Aniston of today, or someone like that. And a lot of big stars were at this meeting to hear what they had to say, and some were members. Some weren't, but some were socialist, Marxist leaning. That's a fact. You can research all of this. Now, what had happened was William Holden told Ronald Reagan about this meeting, and Ronald Reagan went to the meeting, crashed the meeting. He was he wanted to speak on behalf of what he felt was happening and how people were being manipulated and the union was being used and other things. He was being shouted down, they didn't want to hear Reagan's point of view. Much like what's happening in schools today. They have a social agenda they're promoting in universities and in elementary school. I know it, I've seen it, I've got 6 kids. It's happening, just trust me. So much like they're shutting down thought today and differences of opinion, they shut down Ronald Reagan until one actor, John Garfield, great actor of the day, really the first anti-hero of his time, got up and said he should speak. Let him speak. Let's hear what he has to say. Because Garfield got so upset with them shouting Reagan down. A man named Howard De Silva then took John Garfield in the back of the place where they were meeting in the backyard, and he berated him for 2 hours. Reagan then got up and spoke for what was like over an hour, amidst shouting and yelling and everything else. Now, a woman named Olivia de Havilland, an actress, was someone who supported Ronald Reagan, was not a communist or a communist sympathizer at the time, and James Roosevelt, FDR's son, understood what was happening, and they were all involved with bringing a different point of view to Hollywood. Now, years later, Sterling Hayden called Ronald Reagan, the actor from Godfather who played the police captain, called Ronald Reagan a one-man wrecking crew of the Communist Party in Hollywood. Now, my issue with Hollywood is I've asked many times for a Norman Lear and a Clint Eastwood and other power brokers of Hollywood to get together so we could have a meeting of the minds. So there could be 2 points of view, and we could try to come to some kind of unifying principle. And that has not been able to ever happen. AGITPROP, propaganda agitation, of which Erwin Piscator helped create, and which was a Marxist principle, by taking culture and capturing it, much like what the media is doing, is taking a narrative, a social narrative, and blowing that up and promoting it to create division and to propagandize any particular party's point of view. So they will use anything you can. Now, Donald Trump is a perfect figure for this because he comes out with statements sometimes that are absolutely, like any politician. You can look at any politician. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, I guess. But from the research and the people that I've talked to, Trump is not racist. Now, some people will mention the birther issue on Obama. That was racist. That wasn't racist. That wasn't racist. I don't care if it was Joe Biden. They want to make it like it was racist. It wasn't racist. It was a question that Hillary Clinton brought up. Clinton brought it up. And you know what? There was a time when every Democrat and every Hollywood elite kneeled down to Donald Trump and kissed his ass until he ran for politics. And that was because of globalism. And maybe there's issues with business and other things, but that's the nature of the game. There's nobody perfect out there. There's so many people, so many stars, so many sports figures. We could point the figure at anyone and tear them down. Let's look at the policies. And let's stop the lying. Let's look at and understand, again, like I said, the calumny law, which I think is needed right now. We need that because there's too many people slandering other people, and it should stop. And it pains me to see a narrative being used over and over to separate us, because this didn't happen. We all understand that we have to be. We're in this together. We have one common enemy, and I've said this over and over again. It's not each other. It's death. Death is really the common enemy. And let's look at the policies, and let's look at, be honest about things. Again, the Russian collusion thing with Trump. There was no Russian collusion. I have to go back to that. And Hillary started that. But yet, in the public consciousness, because like LBJ did, he's a pedophile. He accused his opponent. That sticks in the public consciousness. And a certain amount of the people hear that, get turned off, and that's all they can remember, and all they can say, and all they can think about. And it's not fair. It's just not fair. I'm about, let's find the truth. Let's pound out till we find the absolute truth. So the 3 videos I am putting up there give a perspective of, over the years, what I think shows you that Trump is not a racist.